Hello, Chicago. How y'all feeling out there? I want y'all to make some noise for Chicago's very own Ajamu Baraka. I am truly honored to introduce a man, a true movement mentor to the movement and myself, a motivator for the masses, a man who gave the poor people of America and those directly impacted by human rights violations an opportunity to speak before the world. How many of you have heard of human rights in this room? 12 years ago, I asked that question, right? And people was looking at me crazy, right? I was looking at Ajamu crazy because I was a young activist who had been trained, nothing against Alinsky, but been trained under this context in a box of civil rights, right? We can't go outside our box. But it was Ajamu who said, in order to get the plight of our people to the world, we're going to have to build a people-centered human rights movement. A people-centered human rights movement. Ajamu gave us a platform as a pioneer to build a people-centered human rights movement, to think outside of the box, to think outside of our local issue, to connect it to a more broader issue nationally and internationally. This led us to go organize throughout the country. How many of y'all remember Hurricane Katrina? The first one off the ground, the first one on the ground with the gloves on and boots on was the U.S. Human Rights Network. Ajamu Baraka is the founding executive director of the U.S. Human Rights Network. Ajamu, a decade ago, like I said, gave us the words that we had to build a people-centered human rights movement. And I couldn't understand what he meant by that. But after experiencing what we went through in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina and seeing how this man inspired so many groups and organizations to change their language of protesting and fighting to an international human rights language, which will later give us some recourse. Case in point, in 2008, the United Nations visited for the first time in the city of Chicago in America around racial discrimination. This was in part to Ajamu Baraka ensuring that our complaints didn't end at the Senate, the Congress, the Supreme Court. That there was an international body that would hear our complaints. So in 2008, of June of 2008, the United Nations came here and visited us and saw all of these human rights violations. America, being so gifted, right, knew that the United Nations was coming in to investigate discrimination against black folks, African Americans. They prepared themselves. Do anybody know what happened in 2008? I pulled the Kool-Aid. Barack Obama was elected the first black president of America, y'all. That by, in all of this count, now I was a big Barack Obama supporter up until the UN gave us that call and said, we can't put this complaint before the world to say that America is racist. But there's discrimination because for the first time in your history, you have an African-American president. This is now post-racist America. And so being a human rights organizer, I was kind of upset because, I pulled the Kool-Aid. I'm not going to stand up here and say in front. Cynthia was a great friend of mine, so was Rose. I didn't vote for him. Biggest mistake I made in my life, right? And I would later regret that. And it's a shame that you have to later say you regret something, right? So Ajamu told us, this is how this system works. When you hit, they hit back. How many of y'all remember the John Burge torture cases? It was Ajamu Baraka and the U.S. Human Rights Network that gave Baba Stan Willis, Joey Mogul, People Law, Northwestern, University of Chicago, and us access to the United Nations, who would later force the State Department to address the John Burge torture issue, who would then make the Justice Department say, go get them on something. Go get them on something. They done took this case to the world, and we got to lock them up. Because they tried to lock John Burge up, couldn't do it. But it was because of the United Nations. We were able to get that done, but at the same time, we had to recognize it was because of Brother Ajamu giving the people an opportunity to speak before them, to speak for themselves before the world, that allowed us to get John Burge convicted. So I want to thank you for that, Brother Ajamu. He was the first human rights leader to take a youth delegation back in 07, 08 to the United Nations. before we charged genocide and these other groups went out there, he took a youth delegation. And you say, well, what happened from that? Well, when they returned to Chicago on February 11, 2009, the city of Chicago adopted the Conventions on the Rights of the Child because young folks went to the United Nations to complain. The Cook County government even changed, how can I say this, the ODDI home name. It was called the Cook County Juvenile Detention Center. They changed it to the Cook County Temporary Detention Center because young people was able to use an international language saying this is a human rights violation. And it was because Ajamu Baraka gave us that opportunity. Locally, it was Ajamu Baraka that helped us to bring the United Nations again here on housing. Most recently, in January, they was here on African descendants. Last week, they was here on arbitrary detention. Since Ajamu has left the network, there has been a storm of United Nations folks say, let's come take a look in America and see what's going on there. So it is with honor that I can stand up here and say, why I'm voting for the Green Party this time around, y'all, in Ajamu? Because his words have always matched his actions. He put the people at the forefront and kept the interests of the public ahead of the corporations. It is with honor that I'm going to say to you, we owe it to the Green Party, who are the only party to put first the people, the planet, and peace over profit. Let's show America, let's show Clinton, let's show Trump that there is an alternative. There is an alternative. We have to make the choice. We don't just owe it to the Green Party, we owe it to our children. And it's with honor I introduce Ajamu, my mentor, Baraka.